did pass legislation that would extend the tax cuts for those middle-class taxpayers that make under $200,000 a year. That's a good thing. I support that. But, Mr. President, why on earth would we extend the tax cuts for a certain segment of the population and not extend the tax cuts for everyone? Why would we do that? Who are the job creators in our country? What is the problem our country has right now? Jobs. We have an unemployment rate that is hovering around 10%. So what should we be doing in Congress to try to alleviate that situation? We should be doing everything in our power to create jobs in the private sector. The private sector is where jobs will be a career, where it will be something that will support a family that can grow. So, of course, we're going to support tax cuts for everyone in this country, because we are in an economic recession. And the idea of increasing taxes on the people who would create jobs is something that could only come out of Washington. You know, all of us have been home for the last few weeks. The last week was Thanksgiving, and we were in the grocery stores, and we were talking to our colleagues and the people in our constituency. And time and time and time again, I heard people who are in the real world, people who are creating jobs, saying, why don't you all address the issues of this country? Don't you know what is happening here? Well, you know something? They've got a point. They've got a point because, of course, many of us have been saying this for a long time, but here we are. It is December, the last month of the year. The IRS can't even print the tax forms because they don't know what the tax rates are going to be, because Congress left in September and didn't finish the job. And now here we are in December, and we're going to have a train wreck. That's why those on our side have signed a letter saying we're not going to address any issue until we settle the tax issue and the issue of funding government. After that, there are many things that could be on the agenda, but those are two things that are essential. So knowing the way things work around here and knowing that we could end up talking for 2 more weeks before we do anything, we're going to set the priority to say it is tax cuts and it is funding government, and if we can do other things, fine. If we can't, then we go home. And I think the START treaty is very important, and we're all looking at that, but we've got to make sure that the small business people of our country know what to expect. And if they can put people on, even in this holiday season, it will make a difference. You know, President Reagan and President Kennedy and President Bush, 43, all did something that had the same effect on our revenue in this country. They cut taxes and revenue increased. Cutting taxes is what increases and spurs the economy, and it works every time. So now we're talking about deciding who is going to get their tax cuts and who isn't. We should be saying clearly and simply to the American people, and especially the small business people who are waiting to see what their budgets are going to be next year, we're not going to raise taxes on anybody because we want you to hire. We want you to give jobs to the people of this country. And if we can extend unemployment for those who have been out of work and can't find something and they're really trying, and we can do it in a responsible way, pay for it, hopefully. You know, I believe if we cut taxes, that would spur the economy and pay for it. So tomorrow, apparently in the Senate, we're going to get the House bill that passed today that cuts taxes for some, but not all. So what will happen if we do what the House has suggested? Households will lose, on average, $20,000 in total disposable personal income between 2011 and 2020. Total individual income taxes will increase by $37 million between 2011 and 2020. Jobs will be lost, and small businesses are not going to hire. I mean, I can tell you that anecdotally because I've been talking to the small business owners in my state, and I was a small business owner, and I know what it takes to increase employment. The death tax will return with a vengeance. Now, a lot of people think, oh, a death tax, that's just going to affect the heirs of rich people. Well, what I think we have to remember is that estates over $1 million will be taxed at the 55% rate. So many small businesses in this country are either farms or ranches where the valuation at death on the property is going to be so much higher than the productivity on that land that heirs are going to be faced with selling the property to pay the taxes, which means it will no longer have any capacity for hiring people or productivity. And the same is true for small manufacturing companies. I was a small manufacturer. I can tell you that my equipment was worth a whole lot more than the productivity of that equipment. Now, you can pay for it over time, so you own the equipment, but then if you die and your heirs have to pay a huge estate tax on the value of equipment, then they're going to have to sell the equipment, and therefore you have lost a business. The statistics in this country of family businesses that are passed to the second generation and the third generation are abysmal. It's about 50% that goes to the second generation. Third generation, 20 to 30%. Who does that hurt? Of course it hurts the families. Yes, it does. It also hurts the employees of those family-owned businesses. They're the ones who are out of work. So the estate tax going to 55% over $1 million is not good public policy. And it would be outrageous for us to leave this year and go into that kind of estate tax. It's confiscatory. I mean, I have to tell you that I think it walks away from the American dream. The American dream that you can start from nothing in this country and you can build something and you can give the fruits of your labor to your children is the American dream. That's what people come here and work 7 days a week in restaurants to try to build something to give to their children. And who are we to take that away? That is the American dream. But it'll be gone at the end of this year if we don't address that issue in Congress. Capital gains and dividends. How many of our older people are living on capital gains and dividends? Because I guarantee you, anybody who's got a bank account knows that you're not earning anything from that. You're not earning from cash because the interest rates are so low that many of our seniors are struggling. And if they have a nest egg of a stock that is paying some dividends, then that's what they're living on, many of them. So we're going to raise the tax on dividends from 15 to 20% at a time when so many seniors are struggling. That's what's going to happen if we don't address the tax cuts by the end of this year. The marriage penalty, that's my bill. I introduced the relief from the marriage penalty. Why would two people working get married and go into a higher tax bracket in this country? We address that issue. For most people, we have eliminated the marriage penalty, but not at the end of this year if we don't act. At the end of this year, the marriage penalty comes back. So a policeman and a school teacher who get married are going to have to pay about $1,200 more in taxes just because they want to get married. A school teacher and a policeman. It's an absolute fact. Is that what we really want in this country? Small business owners pay at the individual rates, subchapter S, small business. Many small businesses are created to be able to pay at the individual tax rate. Over 50% of the income from small businesses in our country is paying at the individual tax rate. So now we're going to say that individuals whose tax rates are going to go up if they make over $250,000, which is many of the small businesses in our country, are going to be paying at the higher rate. So these are the things that are going to happen if we don't act. Now, the House has passed legislation that is going to be devastating for the people who are unemployed in this country. How could we even think of doing something so drastic? So I hope that tomorrow, when the Senate takes up the House bill, that we send it back to the House and say, this is not going to go. And I will say to the President of the United States, I thought, Mr. President, that you said you were open to working on extending the taxes for everyone. And yet, here we are with the leadership of the House, who just talked to the President this week, and we have the same thing that they've been talking about for all these months. No give, nothing changed, there we are. It is December. The people of America expect the leaders of the United States Congress to address the issues that are on people's minds. We are 3 weeks from Christmas. We are 4 weeks from the end of the year. How could we leave without taking responsible action to let everyone in this country who's paying taxes know? I hope for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years so they can plan. And last, Mr. President, the last thing I want to say is, one thing that seems to be missing in the halls of Congress is the importance to a small business especially, and to a family, but to a small business that is thinking of expanding and hiring people, is stability, predictability. You can't say we're going to extend the tax cuts for a year or 2 and really, really do the right thing for the economy of our country. You really should do it, well, you really ought to do it permanently, to be honest, but if you're not going to do it permanently, at least do it for 5 years. At a minimum, 3 or 2 years, because it's not going to cost the government to give these tax cuts. We are keeping it the way it is now. We are trying to spur jobs being created in our country. So when people talk about it's going to cost the government X billion dollars to let people keep the money they earn, I mean, they're going right over the heads of the American people. So predictability is the most important thing that we can do for small businesses so they can plan, so they can say, we're going to expand our product line. We are going to expand our service area. These are the things that they can do if they know what their tax commitments are going to be, and if they know what their health care costs are going to be. That's what's freezing the economy right now, because people don't know what to expect. So, Mr. President, I hope that the President of the United States is listening. I hope that the leadership of the Senate is listening. And most certainly, I hope that the House of Representatives will come to the table and see that we can do better than this. And we ought to do it before we leave this week or next week, so that people know what to expect and how they can sit down at the end of the year and plan their businesses to create jobs in this country. That is the Christmas present that people would like. They want jobs. They want to work to support their families. They don't want to live on unemployment. They don't want to live on food stamps. That's not a life. It's not a future. It's not hope. And that's what they want, a future and hope for their families. So I hope myself that we, the leaders of America, will give the American people what they deserve and what clearly is in the long-term interests of their families. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.